Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma, and I am back here in the lab, here in my SCU studio, covering some of the news and notes going back to even last Thursday, where I had an impromptu show from my hotel room out by Latrobe, Pennsylvania, St. Vincent's College, the home of the Pittsburgh Steelers training camp. Once again for, I think, 52 seasons now. I don't know. I was trying to look. Let me see. Since 1966. So I don't know however many years the math does that. Folks, you guys get a lot of news. I'm flying solo here because, Brian and Flash, they hadn't made it out there, and I thought it might be unfair to opine about things they haven't been able to see with their own eyes. I know Flash is headed out there soon, so we'll be back on the chain again here. We actually have football this week, somewhat of an actual game, but a preseason game nonetheless. So some kind of real situation football that's coming up. And Friday Night Lights was sort of kind of like that. You know what I mean? It's a big environment. Mike Tomlin wasn't there. They had a record-breaking crowd, though. I know I tweeted out about almost 16,000 that had come from one of the folks over at KDK Sports, but the Steelers media says closer to 14. They were shy by about 50 or so folks from hitting that mark. Either way, whatever it was a record number of people. It was packed. It was crazy. And it was even for the high school stadium environment and it being practice, the pads were on. No one was slacking around without Mike Tomlin there. So I got the old notepad. I got all the stuff that I wrote from the last few days, and I figure I'm just going to throw that out the window here because if you've been paying attention to Twitter or X or whatever it is, I got to change some of the stuff that are on our own branding and stuff, man. Elon's making it tough out here to keep up with stuff. But I kind of got an idea. There's so many people to talk about, positive, negative, or both, or otherwise. Got the 90-man Steelers roster here, front and back, all the players that are in camp. And I got something to say about quite a few people. There's some that I don't, but ahead of, we got this preseason game coming up on Friday. Why not go through all of the names? And I'm going to find some notes on some folks that I have here, because, I still have some good stuff. But for the most part, it kind of gels together, and I'm sure all of you have heard about Kendrick Green and his fullback exploits. So he'll be in the middle of this very interesting stuff that's transpired over the last few days, even since I was last on the air. So why don't we get right down to it, because I'll try and keep it brief, but I have more to say about some players than others. So let's start off right at the top. Numerical order, Mason Rudolph, number 2. He's firmly the number 3 quarterback. This isn't last season where there was this faux competition where even then, at best he was the number 2. Mitch Trubisky was pretty much given the keys to the kingdom there as the starting quarterback last year. Well, he's taken the lot of the backup reps where those are available. Kenny Pickett is taking a lot of the snaps. So that's all I've got to say about Mason Rudolph. What did you think he'd be cut? Highly doubtful. Tanner Morgan isn't really doing much of anything out there as the 4. He'll show up on this list here in a second. So I'll try to not mention too many other players over the top. This is the little snippet, the little bios. I picked up my copy of Lindy's, and they always have always used to like it. They had a one-liner about everybody that's going to camp on those camp rosters. So this is kind of the podcast equivalent of that. Bear in mind though, because folks like BT Potter. Who's BT Potter? He's a kicker that's in camp. That's all you need to know. And unless Chris Boswell were to do very poorly, this was, Potter's a rookie out of Clemson, but there's not really a path for him to make the roster. I don't have a photo for every single person that's on here, so it was funny though. There was a really nice zoom in. Let me see. I could bring him up again. BT Potter. Look at that form. Okay, that's all. Braden Mann, another guy who kicks a football for a living. He would be a punter, and he may actually offer somewhat of a serious challenge to the incumbent Presley Harvin III, but I just don't see it. There is a veteran presence. I still think the Steelers are going to stick with Harvin by hook or by crook unless he's really bad through the first 4 weeks or so of the regular season, then they have to go somewhere else. Number 5 on this roster is Tanner Morgan. Not the fifth player that I'm naming, though. Steelers don't issue number 1 when it comes to jersey numbers, and they're no double zeros or zeros or whatever the hell is going on there. But Tanner Morgan out of Minnesota, undrafted rookie. He's there. He comes to camp because he was the rookie guy that they brought to rookie camp. They're able to run some drills because they can't have everybody do it. You sure can't have Mason Rudolph or Mitch Trubisky out there. And how much are you going to have Kenny do? He's there to help facilitate some of this where they need a fourth quarterback in order to run some of the drills. That's about as far as it goes. He gets a little bit of a taste of the NFL life and see where it takes him from there. You never know. May have a future in one of these other leagues, XFL, USFL, something like that. That's where a lot of this gets parlayed to. Presley Harvin, the third punter, Georgia Tech, entering his third year. He's the incumbent. I think I'm not going to say he's completely safe for his job, but for the most part, it looks like it's a comfortable fit for the Steelers, and they're not going to have any notions of moving on to man. But that's why they'll play the preseason games. Maybe I'll come back around and do this yet again. This is just the camp thought so far. Kenny Pickett looks sharp as hell. All get up. I mentioned on the show the other day that he reminds me of Troy Aikman. I've said in the past, even with Brian, and it seemed like very facetious. People were like, what? And I'm like, yeah, he gives me like a Joe Burrow vibe. I mean, Joe Burrow gave me that Joe Cool total vibe, but I'm like, this guy's going to be trouble. Kenny Pickett, maybe it's because I'm not the biggest homer that everybody thinks I am. Number one, I'm not a Pitt guy by any means. Nothing against Hail to Pitt. I'm just not a Pitt guy. And I'll follow him or I'll root for him in certain circumstances, but I'm not like ingrained into the University of Pittsburgh Panthers culture there. So when he gets drafted to the Steelers, it's like, well, am I going to be over the moon? I've seen lots of first-round quarterbacks fail. This guy fell to 20. A bunch of other NFL teams weren't interested. Are the things true about some of his physical traits, the small hands, the wearing the gloves, and everything like that? Throw all that out the window because when you see him play, his accuracy, and it's been noted, and it's being noted elsewhere now. It's almost like I'm like, hey, folks, like a Solomon Wilcots on NFL Network Radio or Jim Miller and Pat Kerwin. Or speaking of Jim Miller and Pat Kerwin, they were at Friday Night Light. Let me take a pause for a second. My cousin pointed this out, and I happened to catch the replay because I thought my cousin heard it wrong too. They got the schedule wrong. They were reading off last year's schedule and saying how the Steelers are going to open up, and then they got to play the Patriots in week 2 and the Jets in week 4 with Aaron Rodgers. I was like, wait a second, Jim, you got the wrong thing. I think they may have cut that replay a little short. I hope they didn't go through the whole schedule like that. But if those folks are listening here, I hear them repeating stuff like Joe Burrow like qualities for Kenny Pickett. Say that again, Joe Burrow like qualities. I'm like, hallelujah, someone else sees it. It's being recognized that he doesn't buckle under pressure. This guy is cool as a cucumber. His passes are on the money everywhere, and the guys that he's got catching the ball are going to make the job even easier. That's going to be the case for the guys that aren't catching the ball because you could just see he leads receivers, anticipation. You know what NFL open is like. You're never wide open in the NFL, right? So to get wide open, like Mitch Trubisky, he waits for a lot of these safe passes. Kenny Pickett is just, I don't know. It's like he could see it before it happens. And he moves and he's able to throw on the run. And very few balls that I've seen throughout camp have actually like hit the ground. I talked about the Joey Porter Jr. interception on the last show. A lot of good info. Go back and check that out. So Kenny Pickett firmly entrenched as the starter. He should be 100% trusted to be at least be molded into the franchise quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers over the next few seasons. This is going to be their window to maybe do some big things if it works out as planned. I always say if, but man, I don't see any reason why it shouldn't. This guy just looks like he looks the part. And I don't want to skip over Chris Boswell, but he's the incumbent kicker. He's the guy that's going to stay there. Bos had a little bit of a down year last year. We'll see if he bounces back. 9 years in the league. And let's see, he was the Pro Bowl, kicker in 2017. And then he was a little bit off. 17 or 18. I'm trying to remember which one when you go back to it. But regardless, Chris Boswell ain't going nowhere. So BT Potters in camp, usually they have more than one guy that's there that's going to compete. And Boz now 32 years of age. He's still got a lot of time left to play in the league. Actually, how'd they mark that in there? Yeah, I guess that is correct for his amount of times. 116 games played. Last year, he missed 8 field goals, 2 of those from 50 or more, and he was about 50% from 40 to 49. On the extra point spectrum, though, a perfect 18 to 18. the Steelers only scoring 18 touchdowns. So, I mean, the year before he had 29 attempts. He was 27 to 29. So we'll see. We always think of Boz as one of the best in the business, but a little shaky. And that Pro Bowl year was 2017. So got to get back to form there. Mitch Trubisky, number 10, wearing jersey number 10, I should say. Backup quarterback firmly. You could see the major differences between him and Kenny. A lot of the safe throws, a lot of throws to tight ends and backs still. Very much can be a game manager. He's still, he's got the happy feet, but he's still fairly elusive back there. And he doesn't make too many decisions where he gets picked off. I think Mark Robinson got him the other day, though. I had it somewhere in my notes. And he's finding Kelvin Austin a lot, too. Really nice deep ball. Austin ends up coming down with it and catches a defensive pass interference flag in the process. I'm trying to see where I have 93 listed, because I could have sworn 93 was the one who came down with this ball, but there was looking for Connor Hayward. So Mitch looking for, and some of these are design plays. You're going to look for Connor Hayward, and I'll talk a little bit about Connor here as we get down to it. So not all of these are the biggest names on the roster just at this moment. Number 11 on the roster right now. A lot of new numbers this year. When you look at this thing back and forth, you're going to be watching preseason games. You're going to be like, who is that? Somebody's going to call him Chase Claypool, but it's Allen Robinson. Traded to the Steelers from the LA Rams. Penn State product, 10th year in the league. Just a tremendous veteran receiver that many wonder if he still has gas in the tank. And he looks really sharp with Kenny throwing the ball to him. He made a Pro Bowl in 2015. Just 1 year with the Rams last year, only played in 10 games, 33 catches for 339 yards and 3 touchdowns. His last year in Chicago in 2021 was only 12 games played, and his numbers were about similar with only 1 touchdown. So he's been off for several years, and even in Jacksonville where they didn't have the best of quarterback play there, he's been a top wide receiver in the league, and he's topped 1,000 yards 3 times in his 9 previous seasons. Will he do 1,000 again? That's going to be very difficult to say, because as we go down this list, okay, Miles Boykin. I think Miles Boykin is definitely someone that will make the Steelers roster as a special teamer. I'm going to have to do, it's not going to be the way too early prediction, but the roster prediction is going to be coming maybe next week. Maybe I'll do that, see if I can get Brian live for that. That's our major hiccup. We're going to try and get live for all of you, and we're also going to try and let you know in advance too, so you don't miss out on participating in that show. So stay tuned. It'll probably be sometime in a midweek, and we're going to try and do that ahead of one of these preseason games. So, but Miles Boykin, I think, has a roster spot. They bring him back as a special teamer, regarded as one of the better special teamers in the AFC North. He's actually made a couple plays here in camp too, but it doesn't really stand out. Usually it stands out because it's like, wait, who is that? That's a pretty tall dude. Miles Boykin, 6'4", 220, not quite the 6'3", 200, the size, the speed, and the skills of George Pickens. Everything you hear about this dude is legit. Seeing it with my own eyes. He makes, Mike Tomlin talks about the routine plays routinely, and he makes the impossible look routine. A lot of people are looking, when they talk about Kenny Pickett, these two are together. They are in sync. They are cohesive. Kenny finds them all over. He can put the ball anywhere around this guy. This catch rate is just ridiculous. I know some are already concerned about cockiness or whatever. He's a wide receiver. It comes with the territory. Just as long as he's still a team player, he doesn't become too selfish or do anything. He did get chewed out by Mike Tomlin for yelling at one of the referees because he stepped out of bounds. Referee takes off the hat, signifies that he's an ineligible receiver, or could be that he stepped out. Did he reestablish himself as a player? No, he didn't. Flag is thrown or whatever, or incomplete pass. And he got in a shouting match with one of the officials, and Mike Tomlin let him know that that's not acceptable. So kudos to Mike Tomlin. For a lot of people who talk about him being a team player or a team coach or player coach or whatever, yeah, it just doesn't work that way. He could be. It seems as though he keeps his guys a very tight ship there. So Cody White. Oh man, it's tough. Cody White makes plays here or there. They had him back there like working with some punt and kick return teams too, but I think he's just buried so far down on the depth chart. I know that his father's in the Steelers front office too. That's not the reason why he has a spot here. I'm sure it doesn't hurt, but he's definitely on a different roster. He probably has a shot. This wide receiver room is just so crowded right now They can't figure out heads or tails who's going to end up making it out of this group. And to make matters even worse, you've got number 16, Jordan Byrd, who comes out of San Diego State, which, by the way, I counted like 7 or 8 dudes that are on this Steelers roster from San Diego State. And I'm going to try and maybe I can do this right now and flip it back around. San Diego State, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That doesn't seem right. There was like 7 at least. But you've got DeMonte Casey, William Dunkel, Luke Barku, Greg Bell, and Trent Thompson. And then there's Jordan Byrd, wearing number 16. He is a specialist coming out of San Diego State who specializes Turner. He's also a little diminutive of a wide receiver, 5'9", 170. He's in the same category as Calvin Austin. This is a dark horse candidate to make the Steelers roster. It depends on how many wide receivers that they keep. But he's definitely a sleeper in camp. He's making nice little plays. I think he'll at least be a practice squad addition. It all depends on how the return duties end up getting split up. And if you've seen the recent depth chart, that's going to be my comment when we get over to Calvin Austin here in a minute. But sandwiched between these guys, Trenton Thompson, a safety, also out of San Diego State. I honestly don't have anything to say about Trenton Thompson. Number 17, I have to look twice. Who's wearing a yellow Mike Wallace jersey? That's how far back I got to go to figure out who has been of substance with number 17, or at least that's what it reminds me of. Deontay Johnson, he's making some nice plays in camp. He's still shifty. He's still quick. All the tools. I think he still deserved the contract that he got because he'll be there, and he's going to make it so teams can't double team George Pickens, as will Allen Robinson. This whole offense is going to be trouble. They're going to be bullies along the offensive line. There's just so many weapons, and Kenny can deliver the ball to them in various many ways. We're all worried about Matt Canada and play calling. That's about the only valid point that we've got left. We don't have to get on Deontay. Will he score a touchdown this year? I don't see any reason why he shouldn't. He will be involved, and he gets a full off season with Pickett as his quarterback as opposed to Trubisky, which this is an important note. I talked about how Deontay Johnson made his bread and butter last year with those comeback routes along the sidelines. He had one of those plays with Pickett, and I can't remember who was in coverage. It might have been Patrick Peterson. Just absolutely burnt on how quick Deontay Johnson turns on a dime. So keep your eyes open for that one. Calvin Austin, the third, number 19. Don't blink. It's the Juju Smith-Schuster number reissued last year. Austin got hurt before there were any preseason games, got placed on IR. Steelers tried to bring him back. There were complications. He never did end up getting on the field for a game last year. Everyone now that's in camp and paying attention and watching him sees, although there was an erroneous report, Jim Wexell was talking about this. He's like, I don't understand. He tweeted this out, like, so, just paraphrasing what Jim, or the concept of what Jim had here was, I don't understand what people are watching if they think Calvin Austin's dropping the ball. And that's what I'm thinking. Everything that comes his way, low, behind him. He's got tremendous hands, and he was one of the fastest, I think the third fastest wide receiver in his draft class, going back 2 years to the NFL Combine. So he's a fast dude. He is right now number 1 on the depth chart as the Steelers' primary kick and punt returner over Gunnar Olszewski. So that's an important detail because Austin's probably the wide receiver 4 out of this group. And if they keep 5, I already mentioned Miles Boykin would probably be a 5th. You got Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Allen Robinson, Calvin Austin, Miles Boykin, who might be a 6th guy. That's coming up in a second, but somebody out of this group needs to return kicks, or you're going to hold on to a 6th guy like a Jordan Byrd or Gunner in order to perform those duties. As a 4th wide receiver, how often do the Steelers throw 4 guys out there? Wasn't very often with Matt Canada that I can recall. And, you got to go back to even to Todd Haley would do it here or there, but really Bruce Arians was like your 4 wide receiver set, 5 empty set guy. You get cleared out sometimes with Todd Haley and having Lev Bell in the backfield, but that's not like what I'm trying to say as far as when they line up on the field. It'd be mostly like, let's say, a 3 wide receiver set with a back and a tight end. And then they might empty out. Ben liked to clear it out. It used to drive me crazy, that stuff. And it's just like, well, we know it's a pass play. 3rd and 2. It's definitely got to be a pass because Ben ain't running and he's not leaning forward or doing a quarterback sneak. Number 20, this is a new number for those Indians out there. It's Patrick Peterson, P2. The elder statesman of this group, probably one of the oldest players on this roster, 13 years in the NFL out of LSU, future Pro Football Hall of Famer. He still looks really good. They're moving him around everywhere. I think he's going to end up being a pretty solid signing, just based on what I'm seeing with some of the rest of the defensive backs groups. Keaton Butler's wearing number 21. He shares that number with Trey Norwood as well, so pay attention to that in the preseason. Keaton Butler comes to you from the XFL, and having had a failed stint in the NFL already, he's the largest receiver on this team at 6'5", 227 pounds. His hands, his concentration, he was carrying a ball around like a baby a little bit after dropping a ball in practice, and he had some drops Friday Night Lights. The drops, the inconsistency, the reason he ended up in the XFL. So I think these are, as long as he can get it clear in his head, anything else that's going on there, he's got traits that can't be taught, and then there are traits that can be, and he could be a find. But just based on the name factor here, there isn't any. This guy is, he's a bubble guy. He's right there on the edge of the roster as far as making it. Now, the other number 21, I want to be fair to Butler too, because I had something. Hold on a second. I had something in my notes about Butler. He made a really great play. I'm not going to find it right off the top of my head, but it wasn't completely remiss of just being, not crap. You know what I mean? But you just got to understand there's only 53 spots, and then there's some practice squad spots. This is 90-man roster. There's like about 35 dudes or so that are going to be without a job here in about 2-3 weeks. Also, the distinction is this year, only one round of cuts. So they don't have to make, like, over the years, they continued doing some of this. They modified it during COVID. They went back. They changed it. They got rid of a preseason game. One round now. So the releases, they could happen a little sooner if they feel like this person isn't getting enough reps. Somebody else needs more reps, and they're just a body taking up space. We saw some of that happen last year. But no longer is it two deadlines. There's just the one, and then everybody goes at the same time. So that kind of might be better for the chaos of the business side of the NFL as well, because now you don't have players traveling all over trying to figure out where St. Vincent's is and stuff like that if they just got signed. That still happens with injuries, but they're not going from, like, let's say the Seattle Seahawks roster over to the Pittsburgh Steelers roster in the middle of August. The other 21 is Trey Norwood, and Trey Norwood has had very impressive looking camp. He's been playing a lot in place. Minka Fitzpatrick was gone for some personal reasons that were undisclosed. He returned on Saturday to practice. But Norwood, he's getting in everyone's business. I said he made almost like a knucklehead hit on Pat Freiermuth. I don't know what he really did. Sometimes the sound is worse than what actually happens. You know what I mean? It's like smack because of the way the pads are, and there's a lot of physics there. But Trey Norwood, for being a 7th round pick in his 3rd year, I think he's really made a case to be on this roster and actually get some playing time possibly too. And he will definitely be a core of the special team. Another guy, some interesting comments about Najee over the week. I don't know that I really want to relay just in terms of his willingness or not to sign autographs. There's some guys that never even come over to the fence, so I don't really want to dump on Najee. But as a big name, a lot of people want Najee. It doesn't work when you get to a certain level of, I know people are like, don't forget where you came from, but these guys get mobbed. You see people like toppling on top of each other, almost knocking over kids in the fence. It's a really sick, gross kind of thing. That's why I've never been much of an autograph seeker. It's like I get a picture with somebody on the side or something, say hello. That's been the extent of my fandom. And then sitting in this chair, you have a little bit more of journalistic integrity, although I'm not walking around in camo shorts or undisclosed like a red t-shirt or something. It's like I cover the Steelers stuff, you know what I mean? But you got some guys that take it even more serious than that. Najee, though, Najee looks crisp. He's getting just a handful of touches here or there. Nothing to be concerned with. They're babying him. I'm going to be surprised if he gets a couple carries or snaps in preseason games. They may just decide to preserve him for the regular season. Damontae Kazee looked like he was starting to come back to practice. I think he was reported or not, might have been in some type of boot or something. They're nursing something with him, but it appears he was out of that. I think he was even carrying around his helmet the other day, but he didn't really participate in a lot of the drills or any of the contact. So he's coming along. They have him listed as a co-starter with Keanu Neal. That shouldn't be too surprising. One of those guys will probably get more snaps than the other. I think it would be Kazee, and then it would be Neal. As the co-starter thing is, they're going to play multiple safety. sub packages. That was the whole plan last year, and they brought Casey in and still had Edmonds with Micah Fitzpatrick. That's going to be the plan this year, provided everyone's healthy. Joey Porter Jr., number 24. Absolutely, like, sick, man. This guy, he's got all the traits to be the corner. He's got the traits to be a superstar. He's got the traits to be like a Marlon Humphrey type guy right out the gate. I don't know if they'll limit his rookie reps, cycle him in like with Levi Wallace and Patrick Peterson. I had maybe thought like Cam Sutton, maybe they move Peterson around, but it might be Peterson and Porter as the starters week one. Porter is going toe for toe, tit for tat with George Pickens, among others. He's had some breakups, some nice pass breakups. He's had a pick that he anticipated really well with Cody White not making his break or running the wrong route. Something there had happened, and Kenny anticipated, and the ball was there. And I mean, to a lesser or to a more experienced receiver, maybe it's more of a combat catch situation. But for Joey Porter, he's already like a level above in his thinking and his recognition, and he just zoomed in and took that ball away with an athletic move as well. So you're going to really enjoy watching him here in the near future, I think. And man, he's just so lean. He's so smooth in his movements. Getting him at pick 32 is like getting Kenny Pickett at pick 20. Like I feel that confident about it. I love this draft class this year. I love all four guys. Isaiah Dunn, corner out of Oregon State. I've got nothing for Dunn. Darius Hagan, same running back, rookie out of Virginia State. Quan Alexander, he's sharing number 26 with Anthony McFarland Jr. So Quan's number is probably going to change, or it'll stay 26 if McFarland doesn't make the roster. But Quan, as you know, a veteran linebacker, formerly of the New York Jets, 9 seasons in the NFL, and he's running the second team defense basically as the green dot or the play caller in the Cole Holcomb kind of spot. Going to see if they deploy multiple linebackers, multiple inside linebackers, or start Quan alongside Cole. That'll be very interesting to see going forward. But got to ask Quan, why Pittsburgh over New York? And he said, because Pittsburgh's the best. And it's like, oh, that's such a great coach, player, media answer. Like, I wanted something juicy. Didn't end up happening. It's about the best I could get as these guys are running around with their heads cut off, particularly during Friday Night Lights. Anthony McFarland, on the other hand, he is having a nice camp. He's been catching balls out of the backfield. He's definitely looks like a change of pace, even compared. Jalen Warren looks like a change of pace too. But it's just these guys all bring something different to the table. There may be a spot for him, particularly if he becomes active in the kick return duties. We'll see how that ends up turning out. Number 28, Miles Killebrew. There's a guy you don't hear about. Oh, this guy could probably be cut. Oh, he's just a Terrell Austin buddy and favorite of his. And yeah, so he knows all of the defense. He's the kind of veteran though, 8 years when he's playing against these second and third teams, he's making the plays that he should be making as a veteran of his stature. I think he's safe on this roster, especially as a special teams guy, So he's got a dad joke in there somewhere. Number 29, Levi Wallace. I don't know how this turns out with Levi. Just talking about Joey Porter. If Joey Porter starts week one, Levi is probably on the bench, or Levi kind of like moves in as a substitution, obvious down and distance type deals. Maybe they move Patrick Peterson inside. I don't know where that leaves Chandon Sullivan, who has been getting a fair amount of snaps in the nickel defense as well. So there's a lot to be determined here, but definitely a steady hand and somebody that you like to have on your roster. 6 years in the NFL, formerly of the Buffalo Bills, and also was with the Steelers, primarily as a starter last season, and made some splash plays too, right? Especially when he was healthy. Jalen Warren, running back, second year, undrafted, Oklahoma State, change of pace guy. He may make this so the Steelers do not need to carry more than just 2 running backs. The precedent is there where, when they had Bell and D'Angelo Williams, or just Bell for the most part. Bell, they would call up, let's say, Trey Edmonds, or they would call up Fitzgerald Toussaint from the practice squad as that third running back. Everyone remember Terrell Watson, the nightmare? He was the bowling ball guy, and he was kind of like the running back 3 for a little bit in a camp phenom years ago, and then he was cut, and then they really didn't have that third guy. Anthony McFarland, you could even say, was sort of in that kind of same mix. Last year, though, they still rostered Benny Snell outright as a third running back. Some other developments here, and depending on how top-heavy the other positions on this roster, I'm going to have to go through and break it down, may make that so that it's tougher for McFarland to make this roster. But Warren's a lock. Chris Wilcox, corner, BYU, number 30. Making a couple plays here or there. Might have a case for practice squad. 31, Keanu Neal, already named as a co-starter. Strong safety with DeMonte Casey next to Minka Fitzpatrick. So we'll keep an eye on that. Duke Dawson, number 33. Been around for a while. I think this is like his third or fourth training camp. Not all with the Steelers, I don't believe. Just early on, a lot of people thought he was going to compete maybe with Sullivan for that slot corner spot. I'm sorry, I don't see it. John Lovett, running back, Penn State. At best, one of these guys is probably going to end up on the practice squad. So, like, let's say they cut Anthony McFarland Jr. and he gets picked up by somebody else. That's where somebody like Lovett or somebody, I think they just go after another veteran at this point. I'm not really enamored with any of the backup running backs outside of your top three with Harris, Warren, and McFarland. So keep that in mind. 34, Chandon Sullivan. We're almost halfway through this roster. We're going to get to the meat. And he seems to have the inroads on the starting nickel corner, slot corner position here, which he is familiar with. The Minnesota Vikings. Number 35, Luke Barku, comes from the XFL, one of their top corners, was also highly sought after. Another San Diego State guy, sought after in the XFL. I think he was the top defensive pick for, I forget which team he was with there. Steelers snagged him. He's making a show of it. I think this guy he's in play. Like if somebody like James Pierre doesn't have their head screwed on right, Corey Trice got hurt. Barku could be a guy that sticks to he's on the bubble there for the bottom part of this roster. So keep an eye out for him. I won't necessarily put him in camp phenom territory unless he starts making some splash plays and really turning some heads there. But he's been steady enough to at least give some consideration, as has been Elijah Riley, safety. He got called up to the main roster for a few games last season as well. Greg Bell is one of the other running backs, another San Diego State guy. Sorry, just I'm not feeling it. I'm really not feeling it. Gonna be tough. Madre Harper, defensive back, Southern Illinois. Madre is really not really stuck out, unfortunately, either, and may have an uphill battle here just based on the number of spots that are still available. Minka Fitzpatrick, of course, returning to practice, wearing full long sleeve everything. You see him here in his shorts. He's got long tights underneath. I don't know how this guy doesn't roast to death in this stuff with the sun beating down on you constantly. And he wasn't fully active. The other day, he's just kind of easing his way back in. He was monitoring. He's got that position. He stands like 20 yards behind the secondary, and he's getting the view as he would normally play, and he's still communicating. So he's still out there, still leader of the team. David Perales, linebacker, wearing number 40. Perales has been getting some second team looks and stuff like that. Watt gets some veteran days off. Highsmith even got some veteran days off. Golden even here in and out. So you've got guys like Nick Herbig and David Perales playing a lot off the edge. Kenny Robinson, 41. He's been getting a lot of play too out of West Virginia, safety. Kenny Robinson could be a practice squad guy. It just depends on how many they keep at each position, what's available, and what they might need to back up. But him and Elijah Riley could definitely make a case there. Do they keep two safeties? They might, depending on versatility of these guys as well. James Pierre, corner. I don't really want to say he's on the hot seat. He offers a lot as far as having experience. You have an experienced backup. He's definitely at least the fourth cornerback on this depth chart at this point. Tanner Muse, number 44, linebacker. Steelers they're so top heavy with this linebacker group. They've kept anywhere from 8 to 10 over the years. I got to do the math. I'm not going to call Tanner Muse a shoe-in for this roster. He's had trouble sticking to other teams, and with the addition of Quan Alexander, kind of made it really difficult. I mean, he was a 3rd round pick, the 100th pick overall to the Raiders back in 2020, and then he was with the Seahawks, and now he's with the Steelers. He got to play. He appeared in 7 games last year with the Seahawks. Technically got 1 start. He was at 6 games the year before. Only 16 combined tackles, 11 of those solo, none for a loss. So he's not really making big plays up in the box or anything like that. He really got some playing time at the very end of last season, probably to see if there was somebody that they were going to bring back, that Pete Carroll and company were going to bring back when they played the Jets and they played the Rams. He got pretty much a career high here, 62% of snaps against the Rams, week 17. of that regular season. Then he played 44 snaps against the 49ers in the playoffs. So he got a little bit of experience there, but there are more experienced options, and it's a little top heavy. Toby Ndikwe, rookie out of Sam Houston State, inside linebacker. My poor boy, he got flattened. I'll tell you a little bit soon as we get to number 53 on this roster. 46, Christian Kuntz, long snapper. I'm not really sure that he's in danger at all. I couldn't tell you. Between him and 49, Rex Sunohara out of West Virginia, I don't know. Stranger things have happened, which we've seen Kuntz. I think maybe, did Kuntz just sign? Let me double check this. As I'm thinking, did he sign a just the 1 year contract? So he doesn't have a real long-term deal. The Steelers just brought him back, so they could be looking somewhere else. Quincy Roche, he's wearing 48. He may have been part of this discussion about Kendrick Green too. From my vantage point, he was not, but if he was, it didn't look well. It was not a good day in the office. He's really stuck behind a large group of edge rushers on this roster. It's going to be a tough uphill battle to get on here, because I think at the most, the Steelers would keep 4 edge rushers. You've got Watt and Highsmith, you've got Golden, and then you've got the rookie Herbig. And he'd have to be the 5th guy. I don't think he's beating out Herbig. And unless Golden they're just like, well, this guy's old and washed, we made a mistake signing him. I don't know if that'll necessarily be the case this early on either. Chappelle Russell, another linebacker out of Temple. Uphill battle for him. I mentioned Rex Sunohara. Number 50, Landon Roberts. This is the interesting one for me. Roberts is out there, but what is Roberts got like a mean streak? He's on a nasty streak. He used to be a captain. When and where and how does he play? He's more Vince Williams type. He's not a cover. Cover guys as off-ball linebackers are pretty hard to come by, pretty rare in the league as it is. So he definitely packs a wall up. We'll see where he ends up. It's really strange. Him wearing 50 still throws me off. 51, you've got Nick Herbig. And Nick Herbig, he's got this dip move that's very TJ-like. He's very quick. A lot of people felt he was undersized for either of the linebacker spots coming out of Wisconsin. Some have said that he, might be an overachiever, or he might be yet in a long line of Wisconsin edge failures. And I look over at Watt on the other side. I'm like, he's not a Wisconsin failure. I'm like, who comes up with this stuff? But Herbig, I think Herbig's on the roster. Does Herbig get some PT? He'll be a special teamer for sure. We'll see how they rotate some folks in, but he actually beat Darnell Washington on some one-on-ones. Actually forced the best of 3 between the 3 of them. And in case you hadn't heard, like TJ Watt was struggling with Darnell Washington, a tight end, holding his own. I'll have more on number 80, Darnell Washington, as we continue through. Now the name you've all been waiting for, and he's sharing it with Nick Kwiatkowski, who came in as an inside linebacker, who has a lot of experience in the National Football League, but hasn't really played much over the last 2 years on defense. He's been pretty much just relegated to special teams. But Kwiatkowski, last year with the Rams, previous 2 seasons before that with the Raiders, he has some appeared in 89 games with 34 starts. He's a guy that can maybe create some splash plays, some tackles for loss, sure, kind of tackler in that. Got lost in whatever shuffle he was in elsewhere. Might get lost in this shuffle too. I mean, you've still got another number of players I hadn't mentioned yet, but just Roberts already, Cole Holcomb, Quan Alexander. There's 3. Mark Robinson, 4. Now you're starting to get to. I just named 4 edge rushers. Now you're at 8 linebackers. Where does Tanner Muse, Nick Kwiatkowski, where do these guys fit into the picture? I'm not sure that they do, unfortunately. The other 53. This guy was completely off our radar. He's done. Stick a fork in Kendrick Green. Looks like a meatball here. I'm a bowling ball. Maybe bowling ball is more flattering than meatball. I mean that in the most complimentary manner. You see him holding the football? If you've been living under a rock since last Friday, Kendrick Green comes out with the second team offense. Now, it's not that strange because I saw him snapping the football in one of the earlier drills as backup. But he hasn't really been the backup center. It's been Nate Herbig and, who else was taking some snaps? It'll come to me as I go through this list. The Steelers are going to have to find somebody to back up Mason Cole. Most people would not feel comfortable with that being Kendrick Green. Where does he fit? He lost his job to Kevin Dotson, who lost his job to Isaac Seumalo, and the Steelers brought in the other Herbig brother. They brought in other guards. It's very like crowded offensive line depth chart for a guy that was a 3rd-round pick. It lost his job with the last 2 games to go. Injury, as they say in air quotes. Kendrick Green, it's like, nope, he's done. Put J.C. Hassenauer out there. J.C. Hassenauer of one of these spring football leagues, the Alliance of American Football. And JCH playing over him, and people felt doing better. And that was it for the Kendrick Green guard move to center, just so he has the ability to pull. People felt he might have been just not the right size, just not the right fit to play in the NFL. Move him to his natural position, 6'4", 315, move him to guard. And then he was in a competition, even named as a co-starter with Kevin Dotson, loses his job, and then Dotson loses his job too. Assume all of this offseason. Where is the fit for Kendrick Green? Let's line him up off of the edge, like a tackle eligible. And then he just squirts out, like almost like a little screen pass from, little pop pass from Mitch Trubisky. Just softest hands in the world. It did not look like a struggle. It looked so seamless and pristine, and he didn't look nervous. He totally looks the part, catches the ball. He's like a Fridge Perry running down the field. The refrigerator, remember him on the 85 Bears? Got to play a little bit of offense too, and was a big favorite for that, for being a defensive guy. Mike Tomlin's done this before, by the way. Roosevelt Nix at Kent State in college was a nose tackle and had a very similar, let me look up Roosevelt Nix and what his size was. What did I say Kendrick Green just was? I'm going to pull him up again real quick. Kendrick Green, 6'4", 315. Roosevelt Nix, okay, 5'11", 248. Still low center of gravity, so... But you put Kendrick Green up against certain people, like Toby and Dequay, and he's got 6 inches and 50 pounds, 60 pounds on the guy, and he ends up flattening him the very next play. So he rumbles for a decent gainer, then comes back around as a fullback in motion, and he pulls and flattens in Dequay into the ground, almost standing over top of him, like he was, I don't know, Gladiator to 300 or whatever, Gerard Butler. Says, this is Sparta, get out of my way. The whole crowd there, and Latrobe goes nuts. All the guys on the field are just high fives, Trubisky and Rudolph and everybody that's participating with them. And it was like, wow, this underdog story, this guy who had a not so great start to his NFL career, does not appear to fit on this roster and will probably be out of the league in a few weeks, has now maybe transitioned into a fit as an H-back, a rather big one. I'm salivating at the thought of this. I am totally a truther when I tell you. And this was supposed to be done with. Saturday, they said, nah, this is something we did Friday. And I even thought maybe they just pulled a prank and they did this at Canada. Who knows? I don't know that he can pull pranks. His job isn't that safe to be joking around. But Mike Tomlin was presenting his gold jacket to Rondé Barber in Canton. So he wasn't there for Friday night. He came back Saturday. It's supposed to be done with. That was a one-time thing. Maybe something just to entertain the crowd. It's still an entertainment business. Why they put certain position groups in that out in front of the fans. They put them out in different ends and corners, stuff at the stadium, Friday Night Lights, and then, in Latrobe and everything else. So St. Vincent's, they pulled these shenanigans again. And let me tell you, the second verse, same as the first, maybe even better. So it wasn't a pass on the first one, but Green comes out and he flattens in Dequay again. Now, on Friday Night Lights, some reported it was Quincy Roche. And I think it was because the numbers, a lot of these guys, they have their jerseys. Even look at Kendrick Green, they have their jerseys like rolled up into their pads. You can't always identify their numbers. But I swear to you, it was Dequay on both of them. And again on Saturday. But it might have been Quincy Roche on one of them. So I'm going to throw Toby completely under the bus. I don't know what you do. I think Kendrick Green does this to any linebacker he gets up against for the most part. Anybody is going to be undersized compared to this dude. And he just flattens him on another block. And then he comes back around, and it's another pass. Now, Tanner Muse tries to come up and make a tackle. And this is along the sidelines. And Kendrick Green kind of squeaks out. And I think Tanner goes like a little low on him, at least pads on his legs. And it wasn't happening. Green wasn't going anywhere. It's like Floyd Man did not break through that wall. Green did lose a little bit of balance. Hand goes down on the ground. He's not down. He's still on his feet, kind of props and spins his way back up, rumbles for maybe another 3, 4, 5 yards before he's, it's not full tackle type practice, but they're in pads. Unreal. I'm a believer. Steelers have a precedent for this. They kept Rosie Nix alongside, they had Will Johnson and David Johnson. Then they had Rosie Nix along with David Johnson as well. They've gone like a season where fullback gets hurt and then they don't have anybody at all. I think Derek Watt may have been banged up sometimes. They didn't have a fullback in their plans. Nix got hurt that one year and was out for the season, and they don't have anybody. And I know fullbacks, just based on all the, rigmarole on Derek Watt, why isn't this guy playing more? Blah, blah, blah. There's still a place for them. It's only going to be in situational football, goal line, 4th and 1, 3rd and 1, 3rd and inches, 4th and inches, game on the line. But Kendrick Green's going to be out there. Connor Hayward is not the guy you're going to put out there on this unless it's pass. Connor is 6 foot 230. He's capable. But Connor's being used completely different way. Connor is more tight end. And we saw this last year. And he's an odd sized tight end. He's not your 6'7", 6'8" tree. He's a little short guy with burst. He could sneak into certain spots. Kendrick Green's not going to do that, but Kendrick Green's going to make you think. When they throw one of those little pop passes to him, and he surprises you for a few yards and moves the chains, that's how you win football games. Don't get too cute or overthink it or outsmart yourself, but I think there's a place on the roster, Kendrick Green. 54, Marcus Golden. Didn't really see a whole lot of them. 55, Cole Holcomb. Looks really great. By the way, Golden, veteran guy. Not worried about him. Holcomb, looking great. Definitely think the Steelers got themselves a core group of inside linebackers finally that are going to be able to play the part. Number 56, you've got Alex Highsmith. New contract and all, looks sharp. He's a dude. He's a beast. That's all I got to say. I don't have to harp on the obvious here with some of these dudes. Montrevious Adams is on the hot seat. Been running with the ones and sometimes with the twos. I've seen Armon Watts, Keanu Benton. There's a definite rotation there with at least those 3 guys. Those are your favorites at the top. Maybe for a nose tackle role. Dylan Cook, tackle. Not really seeing it with Dylan Cook, Montana. Maybe a guy that they try and develop if they see something. Mason Cole's your starting center. Ryan McCullum takes a lot of the backup reps too. 2nd and 3rd teams. He'll be competing maybe for a practice squad spot. Dan Moore Jr. Got Mark Cabali out here from The Athletic talking about how maybe Broderick Jones doesn't supersede Dan Moore Jr. I'll tell you one thing. It sounds like clickbait, but it's really not. But here's the problem. Broderick Jones wasn't drafted to sit on the bench. So Dan Moore, we'll see if Dan Moore comes over to the other side or he plays a year as a swing tackle and then they switch positions, or maybe, how many of you remember Mike Adams from Ohio State? 2nd round pick, brought in to be a left tackle, and it just didn't work out and ended up with Kelvin Beachum, 7th round pick that same year as starting left tackle for several years before they moved to Alejandro Villanueva, an undrafted guy who wasn't even playing tackle at that point. Offensive tackle anyway. So, don't rule out Dan Moore Jr. as having some role. And I could see these 2 guys that came from the 2021 draft to help shore up this offensive line, but are no longer starters maybe, coming into a jumbo package. And you're putting Kendrick Green out there and you're putting Dan Moore Jr. out there, and Kendrick Green's your eligible guy. That's some scary stuff. Maybe you still have Connor Hayward. You put all the wrecking balls out there at the same time. And just plow the way for Jalen Warren or Najee Harris, whoever ends up getting the football. That would be an interesting point of attack. Darnell Washington, why not? Put him out there too. Another guy could catch the ball out of that situation. Excuse me. As we move along, got a couple of names here. I don't have a whole lot to say. Out of Merrimack, James Nyawama. Nyamwaya, I believe is how you say his name. Defensive end. Rookie, long shot. LaRaven Clark, tackle, brought in maybe to add a little bit more veteran depth or whatever, destined for the practice squad. William Dunkel, another San Diego State guy, point him out, guard. Not much to say there. Kevin Dotson, depth, trade candidate. If they feel that Kendrick Green is going to make this roster. Now, Dotson could definitely make it as like the 8th lineman, and Green is like a 9th lineman / hybrid player. I'm not going to rule that out, but there may be some trade feelers. Some people will be like, why not Dan Moore? Because tackles are harder to find. They have enough guards. They have the other Herbig. Dotson finding play time. He's going to be an inactive guy on game days. You might be able to fill in even with like a Dunkel hold up. You can find guys like this to fill some roles. Nate Herbig, like I just mentioned, brought in originally drafted by the Eagles. Manny Jones, defensive end, Colorado State, long shot guy. Isaac Suomalo, prized free agent signing, starting left guard. Spencer Anderson, also another guy that could just fit in this spot instead of Kevin Dotson, and depending on how they feel about Anderson, drafted in the 7th round, so he's not exactly a lock to make the roster. Chuks Okorafor, your starting right tackle. He's not going anywhere. Broderick Jones should ascend to be your starting left tackle as the 14th overall pick out of Georgia this season. First round pick of the Pittsburgh Steelers. James Daniels, the prized free agent from the year before, your starting right guard. Darnell Washington. I have more things to write about Darnell Washington than you could possibly imagine. Well, first of all, teammates of Broderick Jones. This is why it makes sense to have Jones over on the left side, and Jones is your starter. And then I was really curious about Darnell Washington, and this is going to lead me to, do the Steelers keep 3 tight ends? And I think traditionally they usually do, and then one of those guys ends up inactive. But Zach Gentry's in danger here with a 1-year deal. He doesn't carry the weight and the frame and just the physical things that Darnell Washington does as a rookie. Just shows that he's head and shoulders above him. He should be your tight end 2 right out the gate. Pretty much anybody he's been matched up on. Mark Robinson couldn't cover him. Chappelle Russell, Elijah Riley, Trey Norwood, any of these guys, they struggle. He's just a massive load to be able to hold on to be able to do anything. He draws flags. He rumbled into the end zone on one. Trying to look and see who was covering him. There was an overthrow. They tried to get him in a Kenny Pickett with a back shoulder throw. Oh, Patrick Peterson. That's about the only dude that was able to really match up with them. Good notes, Joe. 6'1", 203 against, what is that? What did I say? Washington is 6'7", 264. And Gentry 6'8", 265. They're both together here on the roster. Gentry, I can't believe, was a former quarterback. But Darnell Washington, this guy, he's the whole package. I said he'd be a good dance partner. He's light on his feet. He seems to catch the football with ease, even though I know he wasn't relied on that in college. I guess he really caught some people's eyes in the combine. You got to remember, there are some tight ends that they don't have a whole lot of production sometimes in college, and then they just shoot out of a cannon in the pros. I know Pat Fryermuth's still on this roster. Darnell Washington really is. I mean, a lot of people are like saying Eric Green for Mount Washington here. This guy's something different. Somebody asked me if he's the next Gronk. I said, well, hold on. Gronk may be the greatest of all time at his position, or he's at least considered one of, if not the greatest. Washington's a really big dude. And he's got a chance to make some really big athletic plays. He should be what Eric Ebron wasn't. Eric Ebron just wasn't, he was all just finesse, didn't like contact, kind of made of glass at times, injured, not available. I liked Eric Ebron as a tight end too. And here I'm like, Washington, I'm like advocating for him to be like a tight end 1. And I know what Pat Fryermuth brings to the table. It's just, I'm so bullish on Washington. And as a 3rd round pick, it's they tend to forget because the Steelers had 3 other guys drafted ahead of them. So keep your eyes out for number 80. He's going to look really good, I think, in this upcoming preseason game. Mitch Trubisky loves this guy. It's somebody you can't miss. He's the biggest thing on the field. He runs by and it's like, oh, middle of the field. I know where that is now because I could see. It's like hitting the broadside of a barn. Zach Gentry, though, hot seat. They would have to keep him as the 3rd tight end, aside from Connor Hayward. Now, I mentioned Connor Hayward could mix into I've been putting him in with the running backs group, which would be Najee Harris, Jalen Warren, possibly Kendrick Green, and Connor Hayward. They've kept up the 5 backs or H-back, fullback, running backs. in a group before and still kept 3 tight ends. Sometimes maybe only 2, and then an H-back, as was the case with David Johnson before. So he's on the edge there. He's bubble now. I like Zach Gentry a lot that they brought him back, but now that they got Washington, I mean, this was just kind of insurance, or let the veteran play ahead of the rookie. The rookie isn't ready. Guy's standing up TJ Watt, not Gentry. Washington is. Jeez. You don't think the coaches are taking notice of that? He's going to be ready to play on, unless he makes a really boneheaded set of plays or is a liability in preseason games or elsewhere. It's just, he's on a fast track. I just don't see it happening. Okay. 82's Des Fitzpatrick, wide receiver, Louisville. He's been okay. Don't have a whole lot on Des Fitzpatrick, but he's kind of stood out more than some of the other kind of bottom tier wide receivers here. Connor Hayward, I've said a lot about already. He's in, tight end / fullback. Jamarcus Bradley, wearing 84, the old AB number. Louisiana Lafayette product. Nothing for him. Dan Chisena, Penn State. Some of you may recognize the name, number 85. Not a whole lot there. Roddy Williams, if they didn't have like guys as the other tight ends here. UT Martin, 6'4", 235. It's not quite as big as everyone else as far as the tight ends groups. Could be a practice squad guy. He's been okay, but his blocking is a little sketch. Something you can work on. So maybe a development product. Nothing against Rodney Williams. But I've seen other guys come into this camp that have had some name brand to their college game or draft pedigree. So, for example, you had Jay Sternberger. Last season, Pittsburgh Steelers, only with the practice squad. Training camp didn't quite stick or make it. I think he was signed late in 2021, and then he was waived at the end of camp last year. And he went back and played for the USFL, and now he's signed back with the Buffalo Bills. But like a guy like that has more promise like attached to his name and wasn't able to stick to the roster. So, I mean, Rodney Williams, sorry, you're just in a very, very crowded group. Pat Freiermuth, he's still catching just about everything that comes his way. Pat is really good and another candidate for a breakout season. And he was like maybe like second in receptions or top in yards or something like that with the Steelers. He was in the top categories receiving last year. Don't have it off the top of my head, but I do have it in front of me. I always like to give you the full info. So Freiermuth was third with 732 yards, second receptions with 63, only the 2 touchdowns. A little bit of a regression year for Pat Freiermuth. He'll be back on it this year with steady quarterback play. Gunnar Olszewski, number 89. I'm just shaking my head. I just don't see how it can happen. Calvin Austin's going to be there, or Jordan Bird's going to be there. I have a feeling. Gunnar still came to camp, so I guess that's something, but it's not a lot. They still use him in the pass game. I know Mitch Trubisky really relies on him there too. A lot of drag routes, but he played a lot of offensive snaps last year. You're going to keep him as a backup kick returner. That's about the best. He's got to beat out Hakeem Butler at the very minimum to be a 6th wide receiver. Very tough. Unless somebody else, knock on wood, gets hurt. Sorry, Gunner. Might be looking for some work. TJ Watt, GOAT. Next. Jonathan Marshall, wearing 91, defensive lineman, Arkansas. He's on the outside looking in. Isaiah Loudermilk, getting some reps, believe it or not, as an edge guy too. Kind of like how they were using Leal. So keep an eye out for that. Versatility is the best ability. Why Kendrick Green might make this roster. Mike Tomlin's always said that. The more ways somebody could be utilized, the better inroads they have to sticking and attaching to the roster. And that's my problem when I was saying with Hakeem Butler. Does he play special teams? Because that's how Gunner will make the roster. That's how Calvin Austin's definitely here. They're not going to give up on Gunner that quick either. That's how Steven Sims made this roster last year. Mark Robinson, 93. Mark's had a nice camp. At first, I thought he was a little absent. I couldn't really find him on the field. And then he was out there. He's doing well. He's well in his development. He's here. Armon Watts, he might be a guy that sticks around as well, wearing 94. 95, Keanu Benton looking really good. He made a couple big plays here. Batted down a pass. 95's looking straight up good. Braden Fehoko, 96, had a little more high hopes. I'm not sure exactly where he fits in, with a lot of the other names. I'm going to have to run the numbers and see where he might be in the grand scheme of being on the bubble. Cameron Hayward, grown-ass man. Enough said. Cam's still Cam. DeMarvin Leal, number 98, second year. Where's he playing? Probably defensive line. Benton's going to – these two guys are the future, Leal and Benton for sure. And that's going to be depending on how much longer Hayward plays. Ogunjobi's up to 28. He's got a few years left. When these guys start to get toward the back end of their rookie contracts, they might be paired with Ogunjobi, and maybe Ogunjobi at like age 31's starting to head out the pasture. I hate to say that about anybody, but Ogunjobi is solid signing. They got a good core set of guys on the defensive line there. So, and then there's the guys that got injured. Corey Trice, I didn't get to see. I don't have any opinion on him, but his season's over. Renell Wren, injured earlier in the offseason mini camps. Season's over. Monty Potabal, the fullback they brought in from Iowa, just opened up the door for Kendrick Green to maybe have like a second shot, third shot, really, because, center and guard didn't work out for him as a starter winning those jobs, but might have opened the door for Green to make this roster. Folks up against it. Did it in about an hour here. All 90 players plus some bonuses. Let me know what you think. Somebody I didn't get to elaborate a little bit on. Sometimes you guys watch more football than me, or you're more intimately, attached to certain college football programs or seen guys play somewhere else. Drop it in the comments. I'll check it out. I always am. Always looking to learn something about some of these players. BT Potter, though, you could save. And I'm not ragging. I love kickers. He'll make the circuit. He's there to put some things on tape, and then somebody gets hurt or loses a job somewhere. Maybe he gets a job elsewhere. Chris Boswell has pulled his groin here or there. They could be calling Potter up to kick the football. But I will say this much, just a little bit I saw. I rag on the kickers, but Potter looked a little better than Nick Skiba did last year. But we'll see. In a game situation, that's not always true. We'll go to preseason, and maybe guys are like hitting the post or whatever. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Thank you for watching or listening or viewing wherever you may be. My name's Joe Kuzma. Football is this week. Pittsburgh Steelers preseason game. I forgot who they were playing. Tampa Bay Buccaneers at Tampa, Raymond James Stadium, 7 o'clock Friday. Locally, that'll be on KDKA, or you're going to have to get NFL Plus to watch the live preseason games on NFL Plus, not live regular season games. So check it out. We'll be back around with maybe a little bit of a preview on who has to have a strong preseason game. Maybe I'll get Brian or Flash on for one of those, so we get some other outside-the-box opinions there, as well as maybe some ways to – that's pretty much the way to watch or listen NFL Sirius XM NFL package too on the radio, or NFL Plus. Also listen to the radio, or Steelers Nation Radio should be carrying this as well through the app or the website. So I'll just give you a couple quick hitters there, because I know everybody's like, what, a preseason pregame? That's what I'm kind of hung up on too. But we might have like a real short, quick hit program with a few things that you're going to observe. Wins, losses, of course, don't matter in the preseason. They're exhibition. So until then, folks, my name's Joe Kuzma. Again, I appreciate all of you. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, leave a rating or review. And until next time, we encourage everyone out there to be safe, be good. We'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.